Hey everybody, wanted to let you know that my new book, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, is now available on Amazon and has already hit the bestseller lists. We're going to be coming out with Audible soon and hoping to get it into some bookstores, but it would mean the world to me if you went out and got your copy here today, because in this book, I tell never before told stories on my 12 plus year journey in the moving industry. So go get your copy today, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, and tighten up.
So I do have a training course that I did place on Trainual. And in my training course, I have it in sections from like moving industry, introduction to the company, local moves, intrastate, interstate, everything. That is like, even I have for recordings, for example, so they can hear what we say, foreshadowing, I have recorded someone's work day. So it's there. I have videos that I have created, as well as the text that I have created textbook. And I have, tests, and I love Trainual. I've tried different platforms. Trainual, so far from what I found, is the only one. And therefore we go and we do our best. But sometimes we overlook our own values too. I'm always thinking, like, how come lawyers, for example, of course, they study for that. It doesn't matter. But like, how come all of them charge 350, 400, whatever? Nobody beats you down on the price. Nobody tells you, let me give you a discount and do it for $100 just to earn your business. They compete on skills. I really want to elevate this moving industry. So number one.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Sweikel, and today we have a special guest for you, somebody who's been involved with the Louis Massaro community, just like I have as well. It's Lyuda with H2H Movers, based out of Chicago as the primary location, with a satellite office in Los Angeles. And H2H Movers is over a $7 million company with 45 employees. They've been in business since 2013, and I'm excited to hear your story, Lyuda, here today on how you got to where you are and what you have learned in your journey over the last 12 years that has ultimately made you a successful business. And from what I understand, you actually work remote. So you've got amazing systems and processes that you've fine-tuned over the years that have given you that freedom and flexibility to be able to run a large company. I'd say over 7 million is a good size in very competitive markets. Chicago and Los Angeles are huge cities, two of the biggest in the country. And you've found a way to make this moving industry game work. So thank you for coming on and taking the time to join me here today. We've got a lot to talk about. We already had a little conversation based off of all of your expertise. But first, for the listeners, tell me a little bit in your own words how you got to where you're at. What has this journey been like for you since 2013, and how did you get into it, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, first of all, Wade, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be a guest on this podcast. I started my business in 2013, and like everyone else, I just needed a job. I had a job. I needed more money. I worked for what at that time were illegal movers. I used to do their sales. I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. Only later I realized that you actually need a license. But when I started this business, all I needed was a job, like extra cash. And I never thought about where that will bring me. However, with the time passing by, you kind of work every day and you grind. I didn't have dispatchers. I didn't have sales. I was literally doing everything on my own besides moving, obviously. And what I realized is that I cannot sustain living like this, because I've been waking up at 6 on the phone till 11. Sometimes I had to wake up because I knew my movers are partying. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. to wake them up at 6 so they go to work. And I just realized, like, I cannot sustain living like that. So I Googled something like either Movers University or Movers classes, and Louis Massaro popped up. So I went to his conference in 2017. And to me, when he said, run your business by reports, up to this day, like stick in my brain. To me, it was such an aha moment that after that, I have dedicated my years and years to building systems and processes to make sure that I don't have a job. I have a business that actually can support my lifestyle and my life goals. Work and making money is not everything. Figuring out how many hours you want to work. What do you want to have with that money, right? So at that point, I already knew my goal is to only work 8 hours a week, only looking at reports. And from that day forward, everything I did was to reach that goal. And of course, there were moments where I think I have systems and then something goes wrong. I think that I have systems and something goes on. But you know what I figured out? Every time there's something that actually gives me an opportunity to improve and do something better and more. So now I am at the point where I do run my business remotely. I do work only a couple hours a week, just spending on meetings. I have an amazing team working for me, and pretty much I am living the life that I designed for myself and that I wished for long time ago. Like even me living in California, like I knew I can't afford it. I knew I cannot leave my Chicago office and be elsewhere. So I spent time building systems to make sure that when I go, my operations are running smoothly with my minimum involvement. And so far, thank to God and everyone else and my hard work and Louis Massar and everyone else who supported me on this journey, I was able to achieve that.
Well, Lyuda, you are living the dream. I think that's what a lot of people listen to this podcast to hope to eventually achieve. And, money is an important thing to live the lifestyle that you want, but I think what really everybody's after is the freedom. And they want to make enough money to be able to create that freedom, to work remotely where they want to live in the state they want to live in, and to not have a headache on their hands. They want their business to work for them, not for them to be a slave and work for their business. And so from what you're telling me, you've done a fantastic job of really embracing the idea of creating systems and processes. But tell me a little bit, how is your company structured? You've got about 45 employees. You mentioned it in our pre-recording discussion, but for the listeners, let's break down, what does a $7 million+ business look like that you can essentially have that freedom with?
Great question. So I have 9 sales employees, salespeople. I have 2 follow-up people. I have 1 person that is a claims manager, an accountant, and I also gave her a fancy title of customer relations manager. I have a COO. I have a sales manager, also operations manager, and HR.
Wow. Okay. So you're well staffed. You've been able to carve out different roles and delegate a lot of the different things that tend to take up business owners' times. How are the processes for each of these? Let's start with sales, because that's how we originally met and connected. I was looking for somebody who had a sales team with 6 or more team members. We were in the process of restructuring our sales department and bringing in some new salespeople, moving consultants for the summertime. That hopefully, end up staying longer than that. We moved somebody from operations management to sales management in order to oversee this department. And we've got some VAs that are contributing to that so that we can have more coverage. And that's ultimately the reason why we connected, was because I wanted to learn how other successful companies were handling a department like that. Tell me a little bit about your sales team and how that is designed and what the systems, processes, who reports to whom, how it's being managed, I guess, is what I'm looking for. This show is powered by HeyLou's virtual assistant team. They've revolutionized how we run our business and can handle anything from inbox management to social media, research, and yes, even production of this podcast. Want to reclaim more than 20 hours a week in your business so that you can focus on the things that really move the needle? Use our link in the description to get started with your own dedicated VA with HeyLou. And thanks to HeyLou for powering the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
Sure. First of all, I want to say that I am a strong believer that you can be good at one thing, but average at everything. We cannot be really good at everything, right? Therefore, I want my salespeople be good at one thing, which is sales. So I want them to concentrate on mostly incoming calls and incoming leads. So they don't deal with claims, customer service issues. And part of that is follow-ups. Because one thing that I do every single year, no matter where I'm at, I always go back to sales for at least a week just to test out waters. Test out the volume, they're busy, not busy, like what are the buyers patterns, what are now buyers are saying, so this way I'm always changing systems. So one of those years I realized that it's physically almost impossible to do a good follow-up, and not miss anyone and not skip anyone when you have a high call volume. So when that happened, I quickly hired 2 follow-up people because they're easy to train, right? So I don't have to go through the whole moving journey and just, do Q&A sessions and just teach them basic. They don't need to learn all the details. And that actually helped out the sales department to concentrate on incoming leads and incoming calls when somebody else did their follow-up diligently. So they're like not missing the days, not skipping to send an email or a text message, right? So we have a good quality follow-up. And that certainly brought a huge increase in revenue, I'm going to say, because we eliminated missed calls and because the follow-up is done proper. So for the way we monitor, we have few systems. One of them, I'm using Insightful. Insightful, it's an employee monitoring system that allows me to track them live. So if I want to see who does what at certain time, I can actually go into their computer and see. If it's your office computer, you can install it without them knowing it. If it's their personal laptop or computer, they have to be notified. So they clock in, they know they're being monitored, and they can clock out. And, you can monitor them even with the camera. I don't go that way, but the only reason why I'm monitoring the screen, because if sometimes I have a question why there is a gap in calls or why there is a gap here and there or why this call was missed, I have answers. And there's not excuses from them, but they're actual answers. Another thing that we do, we have a daily activity report. So we pull data from our CRM of how many leads were sent, how many quotes each agent has received, what is the talk time. So not only I can see day by day and spot patterns. So for example, but I also can see one person compared to another. So if agent 1 had 5 leads, agent 2 had 12 leads, agent 3 had 7 leads. So was somebody a grabber or are they like underperforming? So the call time and all the other tools that I'm using can actually help me spot trends. And for example, if somebody is not in the mood to work today or somebody is slacking or just not motivated because, I always say for some people, $100 is too much. For some people, $1 million is not enough. So if they just don't care to make that million, they're satisfied with 100. They're not going to put their best foot forward. You want to spot those trends ahead of time so you address them properly.
Interesting. That's actually a really good tool that it sounds like you're using that I've been trying to research. Insightful. Are all of your salespeople also remote, or is there like kind of a home base for them? Do you do on-site estimates, or is it mostly all virtual over the phone? Are there VAs involved with that?
So they're all remote. I used to have an office up to 2019. So I just never used to work from the office because, as I told you before, it used to be a 1-person operation. So by the time I make it to the office, sometimes it would 2 hours pass by and I would have to stop bus every 5 minutes because the movers call and I need my computer, the customers call and they need to sell. So by the time I make it to the office, it was just like very, very stressful for me. So I set up my system so I work remotely, and everyone else who came in after work remotely. So I don't have any home base. But majority, all of them are all over the world. I have people in Serbia, in Dominican Republic, in Ukraine, in Poland. They're all kind of like, all over. You can call them VA, but they are the ones who are doing virtual estimates. And I also have my, it depends on how busy we are. If we're not that busy, I can utilize the movers doing virtual in-person estimates, just kind of giving them an opportunity to make an extra income, but also see if they want to maybe see themselves in a different role or take up a different role. But overall, my operations manager is the one who does in-person estimates. We barely have those. Majority of them are done virtually. Customers are happy doing them virtually. It's very, very seldomly. And we explain it really doesn't matter if we show up on, in person or do it in Zoom. We know how to ask questions. We're very detailed. So it's going to be the same experience. And therefore we only, maybe I'm going to say once every couple months, I will do in person.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you found success mostly doing sales virtually or over the phone. Are you doing videos? Like, are you using Live Switch or any tools to do video walkthroughs, or is it mostly just over the phone stuff?
Zoom. We mostly do Zoom. For larger moves, I don't do anything, like I don't spend my time on studios in one bedroom apartment unless they're for long distance. For long distance, I want to make sure that, we have no hiccups, and therefore these I would always offer to clients. But anything that is like 3-bedroom or larger would always offer a virtual before we actually collect the information over the phone.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. How have you seen that impacting your booking percentages? Because I've always been a believer 3-bedroom and larger should be offered an on-site. But what we found, we used to offer a virtual or an on-site, and the on-sites were converting at a much higher rate than the virtuals. Have you noticed anything like that? And everything could be different in different markets. Chicago and Los Angeles were a lot more locked down during COVID times, and people kind of got more used to that than over here in Florida, where it wasn't as locked down. And we have a lot of older people here that like to still have that face to face, which is a practice that we still do today. But have you noticed any difference in the booking percentages by focusing more on the virtuals or the over the phone without sending a person out?
I'm going to say no, but also at the same time, I would ask you a question. How did you make sure that the quality of it, like virtual, is the same as in person? Because when you go in person, people tend to ask more questions, be more personal, like establishing relationship. When they do virtual, they're like customer service. They're just like asking questions. Show me this, show me that, so that could potentially be a reason. This is just my thinking. Okay.
Sure.
I cannot say I've never tracked that. All I know is we do have a good conversion. And, I think we kind of established the same process, and we're still doing small talks and establishing relationships with customers virtual versus just like doing questionnaires. So I don't know how to properly ask the questions besides like, I'm going to say, I would want to make sure that people on the phone do the same thing as in person in order for this to be truly a true comparison,
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think if you've got a good process and you're covering all the same basis, it's in theory the same thing. I believe having that like face-to-face interaction with somebody in a world where so many things are virtual, carries a little bit of weight, especially with an older clientele, somebody who may not have grown up with Zoom, or maybe they've been retired since COVID and when everybody went on to Zoom or virtual type things. And I just know from our own KPIs that it tends to do better, even though it should be the same. The other piece of it too is customers omitting certain things. When you're out there in person, you can open up the closet door, but if you're on virtual, you can ask them to open a closet door if they pan to the closet door. But are there situations where you find that would make a difference if somebody was actually there and knew to, maybe walk outside, whereas they might not necessarily do that over virtual.
So I'm going to tell you two things. I'm a strong believer, number one, that people should have what they want to have, when they want to have, however they want to have, right? So if the customer wants to have in person, we never decline. If the customer doesn't care, I'm all also about efficiencies. I don't want to spend time drive around, sitting in traffic for one person to make it there if we can do it virtual, and if that person can do something else meanwhile. It's a preference, but if I were to show you my CRM, build quoted versus built, you'll see how precise we are and how accurate we are. We're mostly all, like for long distance, we're very, very seldomly will be over a little bit, and it will never be a problem. It could also be a problem if they say, I don't want to take this couch. I'm not going to take this. And then we come and they decided to keep the couch because they cannot find anything new. Very, very seldomly. We barely have those problems. I can show you, eventually if you want to my CRM, so you'll see what we quote versus what we build. And we don't have those issues.
Gotcha. Do you notice any difference between over the phone booking percentages versus virtual booking percentages? And what kind of percentages are you guys closing at?
Good question. So I personally don't track virtual versus over the phone. I track general. So we have what I call answer rate and conversion rate. So answer rate we track is number of people who pick up the phone from actual incoming leads. So conversion rate is actually the number of people who booked or did not book from quoted leads. And the reason why I'm keeping it separate, because it's not sales fault, or it's not a true conversion. If you buy, for example, cold leads, right? It's not their fault that those leads don't pick up. So that's one thing to keep in mind. On average, we are at 55%. I have agents who are at 86% conversion, and I have agents who are at 44, but I don't have anyone who is less than 44.
Wow, those are fantastic numbers. So congratulations. It sounds like your systems are very dialed in. We've started to really embrace VAs. We work with Hey Lou. So I guess you could say we have an international workforce. They're mostly out of the Philippines. Sounds like you have them for, not necessarily if you want to call them VAs, but an international workforce from all kinds of countries, Serbia, Dominican Republic. I know you mentioned several others. One issue that we run into mainly on the sales side with using a VA to handle some inside sales responsibilities is there's time changes and there's culture differences. And even if they speak fluent English, sometimes there's a little bit of a dialect. And one thing we just recently realized using VAs for sales is that they don't, in the Philippines, at least, they're not really raised in a culture that separates the difference between different types of tables. For example, a desk versus an end table or a coffee table or a nightstand. They just call them tables. At least, that's what they were taught when they were learning English. So there's been a little bit of a disconnect in, this is the difference between the different tables, or they'll call everything a cabinet. It might be a china cabinet or a kitchen cabinet or a dresser that they might call a cabinet. And so we've had to train them a lot on some of those cultural nuances. Have you noticed any of that with your international workforce? Like whether it's a dialect, an accent, a cultural difference, the time change stuff can usually be overcome because people get used to working at whatever times they're scheduled. But have you had any of those problems, or if you have, how have you overcome those?
So this is a really awesome question. Thank you. Dialects and accents are not a problem because half of the moving companies owners here are foreign, me including.
Yeah, we're a melting pot in the U.S. I agree with
that. So it's like every foreigner who comes, they either do construction, cleaner, or moving. So dialects and accents are not a problem. One thing is I do make sure that their English is perfect, so that it's clear and understandable. They're culturally trained to be VAs. and they're culturally trained to be in service, like for American companies. So they're kind of like robots. And if you train them well, if you program them well, which they're going to perform perfectly. But it does take a lot of work to program them. They don't think outside of the box. So if you want somebody to be on point, follow directions, you need to make sure that you have directions, that you have structures, because they will understand the way you show it to them. They train me so well. They are the reasons why I have developed my sales course, because they told me they needed to be trained. They don't think outside of the box. One of my best salespeople right now, she is from Philippines. She's amazing performer, have been with me for years, my customer service. But give them, when my HR talks to them, give them a different task. They don't want a different task because they have not been trained. They're not interested in growing or anything like that, learning more. What you gave them, that's where they stand, and they're really good at that with proper training. One of the lessons that my course has is exactly that, inventory. So what I do, I have over 400 items in my CRM. So one of the days they actually Google and learn every single item, because, for example, even in my system, I have developed bad queen or queen bad. So when the customer says, I have a bad, they quickly put a bad, and then they ask, what is the size? So they say queen. So that pops up. So they don't use the brain when they have to be like, oh, how do I use this? Or nightstand. So in my system, I do have a nightstand. I have, whatever else they call it. I forgot. So basically I make sure that it's easy for them. So not only they learn it, but I also make sure that in my system, some items are duplicated in a different ways because of that reason. So now we don't have that problem.
Interesting. I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos, including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up Training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. Ideally, the best 2025 that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up. So yeah, I mean, and that's along the lines of exactly what I've thought too. It's if they don't understand something, is it their fault or is it my fault? And as those problems come up, okay, we just know we need to get them to study and learn and memorize the inventories and understand what everything on the inventory is and how it translates into, what we call a credenza, for example, which might be, I don't know what language that probably it might originate in France or something, who knows, but it's like a unique term. I mean, if I'm learning, Spanish or whatever language, like credenza is probably not going to be taught in school or in the app that I'm learning it from. It's probably going to be more general, broad things that will help me get around. And keeping that in mind as the owner, I think, is the key to putting yourself in their shoes. I mean, these are extremely competent, intelligent people. They just have a different background than you or me may have. And how can I relate to that background and understand that background as the owner to figure out, okay, here are the missing links. This is what I need to train them on. How did you learn everything you you know about systems and processes? Like, you've obviously embraced that, and you've embraced training. Like, where did you learn this stuff, and how can anybody else who's listening, also learn this stuff?
Who motivated me was Luis Messario, but after him, I had a lot of coaches from Europe that I used, different systems before I've learned about Grant Cardone. So I have been with Grant Cardone. Majority of systems that I use, I actually took them from Europe. From different European coaches were designed to set up sales department, but a lot from Grant Cardone as well. So I think this is just a combination of everything, because my role right now, when I say I work 8 hours a week, that does not mean I don't work. What I do is I study. I'm constantly involved in some trainings. I'm constantly involved also into creating, because to me, for example, if something happened one time, that could be a mistake. If something happens 2 times, that's a pattern. And then how do I make sure that this pattern doesn't repeat? I come up with systems and processes to make sure that doesn't happen again, it's just some of it I've learned, something I came up with because I needed to come up with it. I needed a solution, yeah.
Interesting. Cool. And you mentioned that you have a separate department, 2 people dedicated solely to following up with the leads and the opportunities that the 9 salespeople are quoting. Do you pay commissions with your salespeople, and do the follow-up people get any kind of commission for booking? Because I agree with what you're saying. The fortune's in the follow-up. Your revenue is going to skyrocket if you just follow up. Most companies don't even answer the phone when they ring, let alone follow up. How do you compensate people? Is it a fixed pay, or is it a commission type structure for both sales and the follow-up department?
Both, actually. So they all have a base pay, and after that, they have commission. So they all have KPIs. And in order for them to get their bonuses, they need to reach at least 70% of their goal. And they know that if they reach 70%, I don't cap it. So if they go, for example, 120 or 130 over the goal, they get compensated 1.3% or 1.2, whatever that is. So there's no limit to what they can make. Plus, I pay them separately for the first, second, and third place. And it's recommended not to do just first place, because then when people know that they cannot reach first place, they get dismotivated. But at least they can get a third place and get, bonus. So that's like an additional motivation system. After that, I have bonuses for KPIs like call quality, quote accuracy, and then for conversion. So they have a minimum conversion, which is 50%. So if you reach 50% conversion, you get an additional bonus. And then if collectively as an office, you get 110% of the, so not just you for your goal, but also as an office, 110%, you also get an additional bonus that motivates them to actually work as a team. For the follow-up, it's the same thing. They do get per booking. So if they, for example, follow up, and, they do get a booking because that's the goal, they also get like a flat fee per booking.
Okay. And they get a commission per booking, or is that always a flat fee per booking?
They get hourly rate plus a flat fee per booking. Yes.
Interesting. That's really insightful. What all KPIs are you or your sales manager tracking on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
Well, of course, it's a revenue, but we have KPIs for a business, for an office in general, for organization, but we have metrics for our salespeople that we're tracking, if we're talking about it. So I have developed, for example, I'm going to back up a little bit. I want to, for example, know what my goal is this year, right? And I broke it down by months. So, for example, I know that January brings me 4% of my income. So 4% of that monthly goal is going to fall on January. With that said, I know I have 9 salespeople and my average check, let's say just to make it simple, is $1,000. With a conversion rate of 50% and a 70% answer rate, which is now I have 86 actually, I know that I need to bring, for example, 900 leads, just throw in 1,000 leads a month. With 9 people, that means that they have to have 90 leads a month, or with 20 working days, they need to have 8 leads a day. So I'm tracking to make sure that each person has 8 leads a day at least. Otherwise, if they don't, I'm setting them up for failure because I'm not providing them with enough leads. So from 8 leads, they need to make sure at least 5 get quoted and they have 3 bookings a day. So this is what we're tracking to make sure that they are on track.
Gotcha. That's interesting. And how are you getting leads? Are you doing marketing and getting leads of people finding your company, or are you buying leads from various lead sources?
I do not buy cold leads. Google, Yelp, we minimize the budgets. We had huge issues with them, and I don't like supporting terrorists.
Who hasn't? Yeah, supporting terrorists. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part? This resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email.
So I redirected that marketing to Google, Reddit. Reddit worked great for us. And just standard,
really?
Facebook, Instagram, all of that. But also, one thing that I really want to work on, I don't want to pour my money into marketing to bring more leads. I don't want to constantly waste more money. My goal is to increase conversions. So every single time I'm thinking what can I do to increase conversions? And I hear people say this, oh my gosh, business is going down or this and that. But again, buyers' habits are changing. Competition is growing. Just recently, I've been talking to somebody and she said she got quoted $72 for 3 movers. We were not charging that even in 2013.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying and I tried to rebuttal, but if how often do you pay cheap and you're happy with the service, and I'm trying to rebuttal, but then I'm kind of questioning their intelligence and they're just not perceived well. So what else can I do to give more value to them for my service so I can actually increase conversion? So marketing, the same for everyone else, standard. I don't do anything outside of that. I don't have a secret, but yes, I am working on constantly improving the follow-up processes with messages we send, what emails they receive. Even right now, I'm going to tell you an example. You know how many spam calls you get a day now?
Oh, yeah.
So imagine movers on top of those spam calls. So right now, what I'm practicing right now to see if I stop calling them, if I actually only send text messages and emails, would that increase? That's just one of the ways. I'm not saying it's working. I just literally started it 2 weeks ago, but because I got right now into sales, so I'm doing sales right now to figure out what else we can do. So I'm they get bombarded by all the movers all the time, and their irritation and annoyance, and you're driving, you're taking care of your kid, you're cooking, you're at work, and we're just calling because somebody told us a long time ago that we need to follow up 3 times a day, and time changed. A lot of things have changed, but we are still using the same systems. So I'm now, as an experiment, I am trying to see if only texting and not bombarding them with calls would increase my conversion. So I guess I'll get back to you on that. We're still testing it.
Yeah, no, I've wondered that too. I think it's more of a soft approach and outreach and follow up. The way I see it, that could work maybe better for cold leads, because as a business owner, we get bombarded. I counted the other day, I think I had like 21 spam calls. And that's just what got through, because I've got filters and put myself on a do not call list and everything that I can think of to try to minimize that, but they still come. And when people lists their house for sale, it's public record. So they start getting blown up from mortgage brokers and realtors and all these other people. And when it's, under contract, whatever, there's all these different reasons that increases. So I understand what you're saying. On the other side of it, it's like they submitted a quote form to our website, or they've already spoken to somebody on our team, and maybe you're calling them from another number that doesn't, they don't have saved or whatever, but they are also expecting some calls to come through. So I think, it kind of depends on where the lead's coming from, how who the lead is, what the source is. If it's a purchase lead, I can certainly see that. If it's a warm lead because they sought you out, they're kind of expecting that call, but I think you have to do it all. I think you just have to catch the person where they're at, and they're working, they're doing all these things, driving, cooking, whatever. And so sometimes it just takes a few attempts to catch them when they're in a place where they can talk about it. But sometimes it's just, texting and emailing them. That's how they prefer. So it's find them where they're at and become the path of least resistance is what I've found.
And it could be different for every market. Like Florida market is different than Chicago market. But I'm going to say, for example, because I have two people doing follow-ups, and I can see what a dial-out service they are, where most of there's no conversations. Do people sometimes call back? Yes. But we also, when we send them a message, we say, call us back. But I also see what they do, just dial, no conversation. And therefore that would actually help me to be like, oh my gosh, like we're wasting so much time just dialing out and bothering people and irritating them, because they often was like, I'll tell you when I'm ready, those kind of responses. So again, don't take this as a template, or don't take it as a rule or new something. But like what I'm trying to tell you, in your market, always change systems, always see what you can do to increase conversion, not just bring leads. Because when you only concentrated on bringing leads, you're just, pouring money and your budget for marketing increases, but also don't use the same scripts, don't use the same follow-up systems, change up the messages, test it out to see what really works at that time. And time changes all the time,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Times change. Markets are all different. I mean, we've got locations in 4 different markets, and different approaches work in those markets. When I first opened up in Gainesville, we were getting a lot of leads off of Craigslist, and tried to do that when I wanted to open up in Tampa, and it was nothing. And then we found things in Tampa where we advertise on the radio, and I've never gotten radio to work in any other market, but it works very well. It generates $500,000 a year for us here. 40 to 50,000 a month for a $4,500 a month spend. And so it is different. But we've tried that, a similar format in Gainesville and beyond, and it hasn't done anything. So you're absolutely right about that. And I think the same applies to sales. And I hear exactly what you're saying. Like, fix your sales process first before you start spending money on all these different marketing sources, because if your sales process isn't dialed in, you're losing money, bottom line. I mean, you might think, oh, this guy's having a ton of success on Google LSA. I need to do Google LSA. That's the missing link. But he might only be having that success because he or she has a dialed in sales process to be able to capitalize on that. So when I was originally posing that question about overhauling our sales department, we had paused most of our marketing that we weren't sure about, and we weren't trying new things. We were still doing some marketing on stuff we knew that had been working. But I'm like, how much better could this marketing be working? And before I open up this next new idea to market, let's get the right people in the right seats and a manager and the right KPIs and processes really tuned in, and make sure we're hitting the fundamentals before we try to go and do all the supplementary stuff. And that, I think, is a great way to run the business. Tell me, I'm curious, like, tell me about this Reddit marketing source. How are you getting business off of Reddit? That's an interesting one that I haven't heard from any other movers. If you're willing to, unless that's your secret sauce.
I'm willing to. Listen, it works amazingly in Chicago. It did not work in California. Let's put it this way. So if I don't know if it's going to work in your market, but for us, I don't know how we got into it because I've never got into it. But one of my salespeople said, I already got 6 people who said they saw us on Reddit. And I'm like, interesting. So I went and, I started advertising with them, and we don't have the Google number of leads, but I have like really good number of leads and a really good conversion rate on that. So I certainly would say test it out.
Well, like, what are you testing? Are you like making posts on Reddit? Are you contributing to forums that have people talking about moving to an area? Is there like a way to pay Reddit to advertise on Reddit?
Yes, you can pay them to advertise, and they have impressions, and you actually have ads that are running. So we're doing both impressions and ads.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So it's kind of like Nextdoor. We've recently started doing some stuff on Nextdoor. I don't know if you have that in your markets, but it's kind of like a community forum for your neighborhood where people are posting about various recommendations, or there's some teenage kids out shooting off fireworks in the street. Somebody called the police. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff on there, but
correct. And they do. Exactly. And they do. But the difference is Nextdoor is just for your area, for your, where you at. Right.
Right.
But Reddit is for the entire market, and you can actually, I set it up a while back, so I don't remember, but I think it's like by the cities you can filter it out, or even by zip codes, because I remember uploading the zip codes in there. So you can actually track, advertise in many areas.
Gotcha. There's a tool that we recently discovered. Shout out to Amber Hallman, who turned me on to this. She has a moving company, I believe, up in Pennsylvania, and it's called Devi, Devi. And what it does is you can link your Facebook, your Reddit, your Nextdoor, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, and you basically join groups or forums or areas in there that you want it to scan, and it sends you notifications anytime somebody mentions a keyword that has to do with moving. So right now we're only using it for Facebook, but we joined all the top 20 Facebook groups in our area. And anytime somebody says the word moving or movers or boxes or something to do with moving, it picks up on that, and we can go through and see the posts to target that person as a lead, by commenting or messaging them or whatever. So, and she's done very well with that in Pennsylvania, and you can link it to things like Reddit, but it's interesting. I didn't even know Reddit did paid advertising. So I learned something new here today. Thank you for sharing that. What are you finding are the best ways to train people? Like, do you use tools like Trainual, or do you have any, obviously we have Tighten Up training, but are there like that's heavily video based, whereas Trainual is like, you can write out processes. I'm sure there's other things. You can just do it on Google Docs. You don't really need, a proprietary platform, but the platforms tend to make it easy if you set them up correctly. But like, what's your approach to training? Is it all written out? Are there videos? Are there checklists? Are there pictures? Is it a lot of hands-on and role play?
So I do have a training course that I did place on Trainual. And in my training course, I have it in sections from like moving industry, introduction to the company, local moves, intrastate, interstate, everything. That is like, even I have for recordings, for example, so they can hear what we say, for shadowing, I have recorded someone's work day. So it's there. I have videos that I have created, as well as the text that I have created textbook. And I have, tests, and I love Trainual. I've tried different platforms. Trainual, so far from what I found, is the only one because it's easy to search for information. So when they ask me a question, and I know for a fact it's in the Trainual, I'm going to be like, asking them where you think you can find it, so you can actually search for it and find the answer, So I love Trainual for that. But when it comes to script training, I am using Sell My Pen. And there are many AIs. I love Sell My Pen only because you can build it's super easy. It's build a robot, and you can create different personalities. It could be a household wife that is just so in a rush, or it could be somebody who's very skeptical or very chatty. So you can create different personalities for your bot, and you can tell them like what to rebuttal sales on. So they're using their rebuttals or either money or stole or, whatever that is. And the coolest part is that it analyzes your conversation and they have a coach. So that coach is asking you, are you ready to train? And do you want me to tell you what's good or where you can improve? And it actually trains them on what to improve. And it's been honestly fantastic. So when I train my people, like I spend hour to 2 hours a day with them, not me, but manager mostly, just in Q&A session. And I do appreciate the Q&A session a lot just because if something was not explained properly, or I want to make sure that my training is so detailed that even a dummy can understand, and I have everything. So if there's a question, it means something needs extra explanation. So I'll go ahead and I'll redo or I'll add something to my course, and this is how I keep it up to date. I actually use AI to create videos so I don't have to re-record. I used to record them myself, but it takes time, right? So now I use just AI to create a course, and I added them. And, so they have a video and a text and a textbook.
Nice. I love that. And that was going to be my next question is are you using AI and how are you using it? And, I haven't heard of Sell My Pen, but that's an interesting concept. So it's basically a software or an application, that you have a bot role play with your clients or with your, I'm sorry, not your clients,
Sales.
with your team, with your sales team. And it can basically give them feedback and help coach them or be a tool for your management to coach them. That's really cool. I didn't even know that existed. I mean, there's so many AI tools that are popping up every single day beyond just Chat GPT, which is what I think most people think of when they hear AI, but it's really becoming incorporated into all kinds of different existing softwares and new tools that are coming up. Do you use it for anything else, like AI in general?
I used to use WooSander for follow-ups, but we had a yearly contract, so that's why I used it. But sometimes you want that personal approach, and unfortunately, AI does not allow that. And when people get there, although we try to personalize the templates as much as possible, but people can see, it wasn't helpful. It was helpful, but I think that we get better response, and we actually got 2 negative reviews for our AI follow-ups, so and we've never had it before or after. Nobody complained that we're calling hundreds of times, even though we do, or we did up to recently. So I'm going to say no. Actually, I started working on AI for quoting to, because as I said before, I want people to have what they want to have when they want to have it. So I'm trying to develop this AI. So when people are shopping at night for movers, they're not waiting for us to start working and then find the time when they're available. They can actually get a quote online, but that's something just like a side project that we're testing, but soon to come, but not yet. But other than that, no. I was thinking about dial out for follow-ups because I told you I see a lot of empty, no conversation calls. My follow-up said, sometimes they say, oh, I'm not ready to make a decision by Monday. AI is not going to catch it, and they're going to call the next day, and you're going to irritate people. So they're like against the fact that we use AI for follow-ups. I thought maybe for dial out, like for new leads. But even with new leads, recently we're trying new approaches right now. So the short answer is no.
Cool. Well, I think there's, a lot of different things available. Some of it's not quite ready yet. I think it will be. AI
what
voice
about
agents.
You?
Yeah. So we've been using the Supermove AI sales copilot to listen in on calls and to score calls, and it has the capability to have rebuttals and selling points and make sure that your salespeople are hitting all the different pieces, transcribes those calls. Stephen Reed taught me, put in your SOPs into Chat GPT and let it store that and learn your entire company, and it can help you brainstorm and ask it questions about specific things or create new SOPs, of course, too. There's another tool that we're starting to use called Synthesia, which makes training videos for you. I just got turned on to another one called Fixer, Fyxer. I haven't downloaded it yet, but somebody was just showing it to me the other day. It helps you sort your email inbox, and it prepares responses to every email that comes in, and whether you want to tweak that or use that response. It learns from you as you send emails. So I'm probably going to give that a test and see if it's helpful, because my inbox always seems to get out of control and it's hard to keep up with. So, I mean, there's all kinds of tools though. I mean, I think AI search is going to be a big thing. It already is. People have always, not always, but people have for the last 10 years been using Google as their primary search engine, and more and more people are starting to use ChatGPT and Grok and some of these other ones. And I think that's going to become a big thing. And, a lot of the same principles that you do to rank for SEO will apply to that, but each one is going to be a little bit different. So really understanding how the large language models or learning language models are designed to be used, I think a lot of it's coming down to reviews. So like if you can get people to leave you reviews and speak about what services they received, the location that they received it in. If they can provide pictures that indicate moving specific services that you offer, whether it's boxes or equipment or movers carrying a piece of furniture, like it's AI is learning from pictures. And you can utilize your reviews to train the AI when it scrapes the internet for your services to show what services you offer, where you offer them, and the quality of your service. So a lot of different things coming up with AI. I mean, we could talk for a long time on that. I'm certainly not an expert, but I am embracing the technology because I think it's here to stay. And I think there's a lot of things that we'll be able to run our businesses on in the future. I think 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years tops. I think we're going to be able to replace a lot of the over the phone sales with AI voice agents. There's already voice agents that are coming onto the scene, and they're not quite there. They're a little awkward. They sound a little robotic. They're not sounding natural just yet, but I think it's only a matter of time before they figure that out. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
I want to tell you one thing. Like, first of all, I forgot that we also analyze calls with AI, and I use ChatGPT. But, I was recently looking for an apartment, and I've been calling management companies, and every single leasing company had an AI. And it was honestly annoying at some point, like irritating, so I want to say, just be cautious, because we're looking and chasing that technology and have to make our lives easier. But we're going to come to the point where people would really appreciate the human connection and an actual human person, because I had that experience myself. So when it comes to the AI, for example, right now, I'm thinking I want to get like a secretary. So, for example, it says, how can I direct your call? And then it directs to either sales, or maybe it's a complaint, or maybe a billing question. So it doesn't all go to sales, because people that RVR, they skip. They're just easier to press one and it all goes to sales, So that's one thing that I'm considering right now. But I kind of have to be a little bit cautious, because I also feel like people overuse it at the moment, and it becomes inconvenient.
I agree 100% with that. I think it'll come full circle eventually. I mean, we saw it happen just with the internet. I mean, back in the day, before the internet, you would find services and recommendations by meeting people and getting referrals from people in your community and building relationships with people. And then we got to a place where if you had the biggest, best website, then you had a competitive advantage because a lot of people didn't yet, or in the 2000s and early 2010s. So if you could build the best website and the best online presence and post the most on social media, then you had an edge over the competition that was still stuck on the manual relationships. But now everybody has a website, and everybody makes it look the best, and everybody's competing for SEO and trying to outsmart the competitor on who can rank the highest and outsmart Google's algorithm. And so now I feel like it's almost gone back full circle back to the relationships. Everybody's online now, so let's build the relationships in the community and get the repeat and the word of mouth business that people have kind of neglected since they've been focusing on the digital. So I think the same thing will happen with AI. Just because you can use it for virtually everything doesn't mean you necessarily should, at least right now. I don't think it's quite all there yet, but it'll probably get there. But even then, I think we're all humans and we crave that personal connection with another human and that legitimacy that'll ultimately be what separates the companies that are only technology and not humans without that human element. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. But this has been awesome, Lyuda. I thank you for your time, for coming on. If we're running out of time here, but if anybody has any desire to connect with you, maybe they're in your market or in another market and want to learn more about how you've done an excellent job of building out systems and processes and training or anything else that we discussed, or just want to work together in some capacity, how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My personal email is Lyuda, Lyuda at H2HMovers.com. But also I am launching a course, which is not a competition to you guys or to Austin. It's a addition to all the greatness that out there on operations, finances and operations. So I have created small lessons with templates, all the reports and everything else that you guys need to automate, to optimize your business. Sorry, to optimize your business and to create systems. I already have templates and everything else that you need in order to run your business profitably and smoothly.
I love that. I'd love to explore that myself a little bit because I'm always looking to learn. I mean, I don't believe in competition. I believe in a mentality of abundance. And, just like with this podcast, other moving company podcasts have come up over the years and I support it. I want people to host their own events and to do their own training programs and create their own podcasts and even open other moving companies. If my movers want to go and try and do their own thing, more power to you. Maybe we can work together in some capacity. So,
and I want to say something. Of course, people are I would love to see comments under this podcast. So I'll be happy to answer questions, to make it easier versus emailing. But I do want to say this. I am kind of in a mission to elevate moving industry because, what I realized that a lot of business owners, when we come, we are kind of in the mentality that we're laborers, right? Mm-hmm. So we come and we do our best, but we don't have MBAs, majority of us, okay? We don't come with this, let me plan my business, let me, make this much money. And therefore we go and we do our best. But sometimes we overlook our own values too. I'm always thinking how come lawyers, for example, of course, they study for that. Doesn't matter. But how come all of them charge 350, 400, whatever? Nobody beats you down on the price. Nobody tells you, let me give you a discount and do it for $100 just to earn your business. They compete on skills. I really want to elevate this moving industry. So number one, customers have a different respect toward movers than us.
Yes.
And number two, so our lives are easier. We are also professional relocation specialists. We are as professional as plumbers, everyone else. So, but you cannot claim to be here when everything else is here, right. And this is not to hurt anyone's feelings, but just the reality is we need to work together and get out of that scarcity. What happens if I charge more? But do you know that people don't see value when you charge little?
Right.
If you're cheap, do you care about your cheap shoes? Do you care about your cheap car? If you're going to kill it tomorrow or not? So building value versus beating each other on the price down, and I think this is my mission and I know that it's yours as well. So I really hope that all the movers are going to come together and, actually stop being afraid of charging what they think they're worth and deserving. And, starting with mentality, because knowing your value starts with you knowing your value internally before you start, putting the value to your business.
Thank you so much for saying that, because our missions align perfectly. It's to elevate this industry. We're not commodities. We are a skilled source of labor that is solving a problem, and that's getting people from point A to point B that I can't otherwise do it. And unfortunately, there have been bad players in the space traditionally. It's, got a stigma. Everybody has probably had or knows somebody who has had a bad moving experience with somebody who maybe intended well, maybe didn't intend well. But it's our jobs to erase that stigma and decommoditize ourselves. And I mean, I know if I ever need a lawyer, I don't want the cheapest lawyer. I want the one who's going to help me win my case, whether that's civil, hopefully, God forbid, never criminal. But if they're going to keep me out of jail, I'll pay as much money as I can. So, it's the same concept. We need to be able to know our worth and to be able to not be a commodity, but to be, let the best charge premium rates and let the consumers know that and not think that we're all the same at the end of the day. So
exactly. Compete on rates, compete on skills versus on rates. Thank you, Wade. It was so amazing. Appreciate you tons.
Thank you. This has been amazing. And I took a whole lot of notes here. So I've got a lot of really good ideas after this. That's exactly what I need is more ideas, like any entrepreneur.
I love that.
It's all about the execution at the end of the day and that mentality of abundance. So thank you. I'm feeling energized. Lyuda, this has been awesome. Lyuda with H2H Movers. You heard how to contact her, Lyuda at H2HMovers.com if you need to get in touch. And I know she's in the Facebook groups too. So looking forward hopefully to making some more connections. And thanks for being an open book and sharing everything that you've shared here today. I certainly learned a lot and I hope that you all did too. So until next time, we'll see you on I don't even know the name of my own podcast. We'll see you on the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. Before we wrap up, I want to thank the team at Hey Lou for making this show happen. Hey Lou is a virtual assistant placement and management platform owned by a fellow moving titan, and they provide the production for the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. But here's what's really amazing. Their virtual assistants do way more than just podcast support. From managing my crazy schedule to handling client communications, data and KPI analysis, and even sales support for a fraction of the cost of traditional salaried in-house employees, they're truly a secret weapon behind Two College Brothers' growth. Curious how a VA could transform your business? Check out our referral link in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you'd like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for a Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.